Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I want to share certain thoughts on a new idea that the species has not suffered only external war, but internal war. And I want to kind of bring a light to that idea, kind of show how it could make sense here. You see, we no longer can just study what's in the space. We have to study the nature of the space as well. What that means is that the story of humanity has two sides. There's a side of it that's happening in the shade. It is unseen aspect of the human life, and then there is the seen aspect, what in some sense we remember, what we invite into the collective thought structure, such as history. Now, when we look at war, war starts from conflict. So one can say the definition of war is when there is a disagreement, as if the ultimate resolution of disagreement is war. Now, in war, there are forces against one another, and I find that internally in mankind's, in the human being psychology, when there is a resistance to a certain force, I don't know what happened to the picture. All right, good thing I noticed. The inner war is a war against the unknown. It's the psychological, subjective dimension of the human being. It is an idea that has been kept through its difference with the world rather than its commonality. You see, to be honest, you can bond with anyone. Salesmen understand this. Because on some level, human beings, they have a mind which is following a sort of program of a value system. Somebody figures out the values of your system, they in some sense understand your system. They understand your approach, they understand in what way the attention is standing. You see, some philosophers, they would look at other philosophers and they would just see just simple men. And some people would look at other philosophers and wonder what paradigms of thought, what dimensions of observance are standing behind the eyes of this being. We have this ancient Persian poet by the name of Farid al-Din Attar of Nishapur. He says, "Let love lead your soul. Make it a place to retire to, a kind of monastery cave, a retreat for the deepest core of your being." said. The mind has to animate. The mind has to animate the unknown. It will, in some sense, the stories of our life advance to the animative force behind our eyes. It's very fascinating. It's no longer about just visual senses, the sensory perception. The sensory perception has been standing in the same place as it has since ancient times. There has been new developments. The new developments include a mind that can, in some sense, multidimensionalize its attention. It kind of segments attention into various relationships. To be honest, the human intelligence wonders, assumes it is terrestrial, and in some sense denies the extraterrestrial unless there's objective evidence. But let me tell you something. When you look at life, normality was made like fire. Language, it was invented. Literally like sticks and stones. The caveman slammed them together and a spark was seen, and in regards to the invention of the technology of language, human beings made sounds as if grunts from the inner dimensions were reaching the external in some sense. So I am telling you, we've had an internal life way before we've had an external life. It's just that we don't remember it, because if we did remember it, we would be in a totally different position of attention. Your attention is a portal to existence. You may not believe me because the concepts that we entertain in regards to what is reality are too firm. It's as if somebody says, Mr. Within, you speak about other dimensions, but all your audience is here. What other dimensions are there? What other doors to our sensory perception are there? And isn't it true that every door of the unknown we open, we instantly fill it up with knowledge, as if we are looking for truth before even truth has a chance to show us who she is? The mind can be enslaved to ways that the soul knows it can walk better. I have, in some sense, since a young age, I had declared war on language. But indirectly, it was subconscious. I declared war on language because language declared war first. What I mean by that is that the moment simplicity was under siege by complex ideological patterns, that the people who were sharing these ideological patterns, I would just see human behavior. I realized human behavior is more uncontrollable than we think, you know? Because who knows how deeply emotions are moving thoughts in the minds of people. The most important thing is to know yourself. But when you go looking for that self, you'll eventually find the objective self. Just look in the mirror, you know. But the subjective self, that, dear listener, is where the purpose of life is not found. It evolves. Literally, you are no longer the same soul and the same eyes, because the questions you are asking have extended your vision. I've had moments where there's a saying in Farsi, they say it's like when your heart becomes like a kebab. It's like you see your heart gets broken so many times, existentially, so many times, that it's as if with each heartbeat you are trying to hold, like, put with all your strength, hold the pillars of heaven afloat. It's as if you evolve from a conditional reality to an unconditional reality, but the unconditional reality cannot be referenced to in accordance to the conditional reality. Therefore, you find what is liberation is the returning of the attention to the true presence of the being. There is nothing else that can be spoken about, to be honest. I have no idea what the educational systems on this planet are doing. I think, as far as I'm concerned, they're in some sense trying to just put people in a roller coaster that is not evolving. It is tragic how 8 billion unique minds must adjust to the same system, rather than the same system taking on the challenge. As if there was somebody in the politics of the world who was like, wait a minute, human beings are not the gears of the machine. Human beings are the minds that invent them. When you realize the power of an inventor who creates an invention is literally like that moment where Thor was authorized to pick his hammer. The inner realities were authorized to be manifest externally. Your mind is story oriented. This cannot be denied. Survival requires a good story. Most people in society, their whole sense of ethics comes from the story they feel they're pushed in. Sometimes in social settings, I see it, people instantly, they tune out of their authenticity and it becomes just a robotic drama. It's like halfway, you know, you're talking to someone and you see, their backup, like their mind is literally taken over. They have given into beliefs like souls that have not understood their minds. And of course, much is easier said than done, to be honest. There's been times where I have spoken about discovering the presence, but even though I've kind of seen an attributelessness to the consciousness, I'm saying life has a sort of expressive meaning. Its meaning has no, you can't relate it to the past, you can't expect something from the future because you're watching novelty happen. You're seeing that the person who's waiting to create all the opportunities they want in their life, it's also being created. It's a oscillation of your attention between dependence and independence. In independence, it considers itself an idea in the world. In dependence, it's not an idea, it's a collective field. So your minds, the way your intelligence can express, it can express as an expression of the whole field of intelligence or a filtered ideological individual expression. It's as if, like, there was this question in Zen where it would say, who were you before your parents were born? And you see the power of emptiness. It's as if the same way sacred scripture was being revealed on a piece of paper is how every moment this world that changes is a revelation. You just eventually study the change of your environment. Sometimes you may find that the system, the environment's intelligence is self-centered. What that means is, I'm telling you, there's so many conversations happening on this planet, but most likely 70% of them are artificial. I have to explain a little about idea I call literally I've kind of like I guess I don't see the educational system teaching it, so I'm teaching it. It's the idea of the subjective evolution. It's the idea of that the mind is actually a point of evolution, something that is expanding. Whether it's through chaos or order, there is expansion. You can never go through something in life, regardless if it's good or bad, without saying your scope of experience has extended. Every experience in life, whether it's right or wrong, is adding something. But what is it adding to? That's the true question. Pretty much it's like the intellectual position looks at life and says, okay, there is endless external manifestation which results to endless streams of data. Literally there's so much stuff manifest as existence that if we have to index all of it, or we can't be super accurate. So in some sense the inevitable it's like the incapability of accuracy. You will find this in the intellectual domain. You will try to neatly organize thoughts and a wind will blow them. And that wind is the unknown depths of imagination that still wonders. For me, the mind is kind of very strange. It's like ceremonial. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It's like you sleep, you wake up. You sleep, you wake up. You know, you see, you blink. You see, you blink. Like, it's one of those things where I don't know how to say it, but it's like whether I like it or not, my survival requires cyclical patterns. However, the mind can free itself from the cycle. The mind can, in some sense, tap into the inventor's sphere. This is a book I wrote in 2013. The inventor's sphere was this idea that there is a field of intelligence where all manifest design is written. Literally, you tap into the database of the cosmic mind, you know. Now, this database of the cosmic mind is not for an individual. It's literally a temple where you got to take off your shoes. It's literally a state of being where you can't be individual in as you enter. And so what is there when your individuality goes? It's, believe it or not, it's a conscious echo, literally like a satellite. In your inner realities, people think, yo man, I can imagine anything. But I'm telling you, the sophistication of this is not just with imagination. It has to do with the constant reconfiguration of the whole structure. It's as if as your external environment changes, so does the inner reality have to consider new options. Therefore, the mind becomes identified no longer just based on the thoughts it has, but based on its generating ability. So you suddenly open your eyes in this world, and no longer you are a thought painted by your past or by your kind of what you want in the future. It's like the person out of the painting kind of stepped out of the painting, and in that instant, what happened? The person began to live a life, kind of like imagine the sequel to Dorian Gray, that novel. Dorian Gray, if I remember correctly, it's pretty much this dude who wants to be immortal, wants his beauty to be immortal. And so there's like, as if he's immortal, he doesn't get old, but this painting in the attic is getting old instead. And I don't know, eventually the painting gets cut and the painting becomes beautiful and the guy dies and becomes old. You know, it's as if the illusion of immortality ends. So the illusion of certain thought structures, it's natural, it ends. You know, anything that goes out of your control, it's like, all right, life, take care of yourself. You know, it's like, what can you do? Really, what can you do? It's like, that's the nature of communication. For me, there came a time where I became karma sensitive. When I say karma sensitive, that means it's pretty much another way of saying you want to figure out why things are happening the way they are. That's what pretty much karma is, that state of mind. So when you're looking at that, that means every moment of your existence is a response to your whole intelligence of what it is. And if you have one moment of inefficiency, in that moment you will feel you are an inefficient being. That feeling will be painted in your past and future as well. So the wisdom comes with passing through, being the wind between the branches of the knowledge that in some sense wants you to cage. No, I don't want to say cage, but like knowledge is territorial. That's the whole human progress, is it not? We're just expanding our territory of conscious reach beyond our clouds. So I'm saying, dear human beings, there isn't just the external world we got to take care of. There is the internal world. And the internal world, the most genius way of taking care of it is, as many old souls know, is the creative process. The creative process has no owner. That's something you need to know about creativity, about the way nature happens. It's not for man to put a mask on, you know? This is the power of the Abrahamic religions, was that because it was divine revelation, it doesn't matter, you can't deny the mask. But the mask was put on the face of any individual who entertains the thought. See, Mr. Within is taking this angle who says anybody on this planet who has a belief, you are on one side. And I see a moment where it transcends language. It's beyond the language threshold. So Mr. Within is kind of watching the species and being like, okay, human beings, keep believing. Keep believing what you hear. Keep consuming the same data until you get bored. And that's when genius will find you. There is something cool about people who are bored. It's as if they are done with that reality. You know, it's as if somebody, if you notice somebody getting angry, you know, imagine somebody gets really angry in front of you and you just look at them and you're like, you're boring me, man. Like, the concept of boredom is lack of excitement, and we fight to capture each other's attention. You have to know this. In this world, there's many people's minds who are like silent winds. They may approach you, they may not. You know? It's like you have to have a warrior's mindset on some level. So my consideration of how we have reached to be who we are, somebody once said, the true expression of man is that his character is defined not based on the battles he loses, but the wars he wins. What that means is your strength can only come from experience. And so what I'm saying is that every person is going through various micro battles, and in some sense their achievements or what they are or who they are is dependent on the overall sum of those battles. You know, and so it depends how you win the battle. If you don't win the battle, you will literally walk valuelessly. And even though some may think there's a disadvantage to suffering, let me tell you, suffering is literally the bridge we must cross for our minds to even be able to conceptualize a better paradise. Our suffering is our instruction book for paradise. Literally, it's telling us what we need to do. The poet Rumi says, you will learn by reading, but you will understand with love. And love means trust. Trust of what? Ultimately the unknown. You have to trust the unknown to step out of your house door. You got to trust the unknown in your last breath, till your last breath. The unknown is something that most people play with. Most people are so afraid of the chaotic nature of reality that they have to. It's better to be a slave to an artificial paradise than to truly see the chaos that stands and where the true philosopher's table is. I speak of people who will come. Future generations they've already heard my talks and are manifesting. And what I mean by that is in the future generations, there will come pilots. And so there have been, since time immemorial, for human civilization, there has been pilots of consciousness, human beings who their mind evolved quicker than their body. And their mind evolved in accordance to the emptiness of the reality. So what that means is I want you to see that there's various ways the concept of multidimensionality can be considered. It can be considered ad infinitum, literally endless parallel realities. Either those parallel realities are the same or relate to one reality being different, or that multidimensionality relates to each reality being a universe of its own. You know, it's like each grain of sand within it holds infinite universes. You know, so what that means is there's this this sophisticated. The intellect is kind of the edge of the door of the intellect is pretty much the concept of infinity, or the concept of emptiness. These are the edges of the world of the intellectual reality that spins in accordance to duality. So, aside from an infinite multidimensional kind of view, there is also the view of a dualistic multidimensional view where the only dimensions are opposites of one another, therefore at the same time being everything and nothing. I am telling you, your brain is acting as if it has two different urges towards self. It's as if you have two brain hemispheres, but they're both the brain. You see what I'm saying? It's as if there is two dimensions. The moment has an objective and subjective component, and it's like you're being the whole moment. And once the objective and subjective are rhythmic enough, they will eventually wonder about the unknown dimensions. So what that means is reality divides up. It divides up, and a part of it, it's like kind of like you could think of it as like from Game of Thrones Night's Watch or Shingeki no Kyojin, like, you know, the Survey Corps kind of dividing, right? So there's very, 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 very different ways you can see it, but it's kind of like a letting go, a kind of boomerang thing. You have to let go of the boomerang, and if you've thrown it right, hopefully it comes back. This is the constant effort that goes on. It's as if there's a sculptor behind your eyes. We call it the mind, but what is it sculpting itself? The mind is sculpting itself into manifestation. It does it through kind of a sort of programmed genetical data processing method. After sensory data has been processed, it will be left in the same space where eventually in silence and stillness, the spirit of imagination of the free will moves reality. Your mind has an ability, literally it can visualize phenomena and how would I say it? It can visualize phenomena in phenomena. Literally you see an object, it's no longer an object, it's a cup of coffee. So that's kind of part of the mind's talent. And then there is also the ability of the mind taking the attention of the moment. Literally, you as a moment of attention, currently hearing what I'm saying, in accordance to where this attention goes, it will get pulled towards there. Your world goes where your attention goes. Because where your attention goes is what you're seeing. That's simply it. It's like all Mr. Within is saying is, dear human being, before you were fed, spoon-fed by your society and cultural, social programs, many ideologies, who were you? Do you ever wonder? Do you wonder if your DNA harbors a vision that perhaps the civilization is looking for? Scripture has made the unknown mathematical. Religion is a mathematical interpretation on reality. Many people don't realize. To be honest, everything has a geometrical existence. We just don't recognize the geometrical patterns because the mind hasn't learned to zoom in and out of phenomena. It's incredible when you become a watcher of your thoughts. It's literally like your mind is an antenna and you pick up things throughout the day. You notice things. Only an honest person can see the dishonest world. The dishonest person is too in it to see the dishonesty. What it is like, imagine there is this master carpenter. Imagine in the Japanese tradition. This master carpenter was so in line with the Tao of the moment that each sword he made had such incredible design where it came with a story. Now this master swordsmaker, let's say, weapon maker, or carpenter, he gets two disciples, and suddenly there's a moment where the two disciples are beside one another, two apprentices, and they're kind of watching this man enter the Tao and build this kind of weapon with a sort of rhythmic abidance to the moment. As if he has found the speed of intelligence faster than thought. And that is the value of love and trust. It's giving your mind access. What if your eyes have a story you're unaware of? What if the urge for evolution is the side effect of an eternal expression? What if the world can be sculpted in any way through language? Where are we left? As this objective creature, first it was all unconscious on this planet. I entertain such a hypothesis that like this is one of those Mr. Within theories where I don't know how to say it, but it's like, I believe we were this unconscious movement. We became conscious by separating ourselves. As our physical existence became separate, the field of intelligence had an opportunity. And what occurred is that it managed to divide itself. So what it means is that there's this unconscious intelligence, suddenly the body comes into manifestation, it's separate from the world, so the creature for billions of years is just moving as a moving creature, maybe not with any senses or like evolutionary attributable kind of qualities developed that we can consider now. And so the moment this creature became aware, it's separate from the world. After it evolved from just unconscious movement to an awareness that it's separate, simultaneously right there, in that moment of evolution, the subjective evolution began. Literally, the last cells of the caterpillar in the cocoon dismantled for suddenly the new dimensions of the butterfly to arise. So literally there was a sort of strange transformation of creaturehood. Excuse me. So when the subjective evolution began, the subjective evolution harbored a momentum. It had a momentum within itself. Literally, imagine like a snowball emerging, getting as the snowball effect occurs. It gets bigger and bigger as the momentum increases and increases. So we become a creature defined for the first time into a position where our awareness of our speed could have direction. It's like evolutionary wise, we were at like literally speed, which is just a sort of force of movement, but then it became like velocity. Suddenly the conscious mind had a direction it could want to go. You know, suddenly it began getting, it's as if the environment of this creature, as it became energetic, active, in some sense, something activated in this creature, the environment's relationship with the creature began defining the creature. It's as if before, it's like after your parents, the world is your parent. I'm telling you, that is it. It's either a spirit of efficiency or a spirit of inefficiency, and both will find you. The most honorable thing is to observe. Literally, imagine you are an incredible martial artist right now, and another martial artist back in the day during Ip Man times. Imagine you're Ip Man right now. Okay, this martial artist, Wing Chun master, Bruce Lee's teacher, you know? So imagine you have an access to a sort of ability, and then another being comes and they have access to a sort of ability. What occurs there? Regardless of the expression of the moment, it's literally the cosmos. It's literally how the forces of the universe treat the being. When the person doesn't acknowledge the cosmos alive, the spirit, like the natures, it's as if karma is about what you're acknowledging, as if the lords of karma are like the gods of another dimension watching through a screen how the human being plays the next round. This is the ancient mystical view. The mind grew wings. The wing of chaos, the wing of order. Chaos and order became a spectrum of intelligent manifestation where a story could be extracted from. The story was eventually extracted to such a degree that it had to find stability through a collective counter. And what that means is the individual survived until it realized its survival could be easier if it was in a tribe. And then the tribe realized that it would be easier if it merged with other tribes. And eventually there was this constant collective movement, as if drops of water merging, then becoming a stream, then becoming a river, then going through the waterfall, then in some sense finding the ocean. The story of civilization is the journey of how water from the heavens lands on earth to return to the heavens and then again to come back. It's as if as long as you're attached to any phenomena, you will see that phenomena echo in your inner reality. In the Diamond Sutra, there's a quote that says, "Keep your mind alive and free without abiding in anywhere or anything." And that's so crucial. So how do you keep a mind alive and free? Well, first you wonder how it's alive. So you acknowledge your biological existence, you acknowledge the manifest world, and you are grateful for the fact that there's existential data accessible to you rather than just pure nothing. It's like there's a world here. How fascinating. And there's so much to do. There's this I'm going on a tangent here, but I thought maybe I can introduce this. In Japanese culture, for me, I consider myself, before being a speaker, to be a writer. I started with writing as a pure expression. And so I study stories pretty much. I find the world to be even told as a story. How else can it be said? We are story processing creatures. You know, data's evolution is the enlightenment of the character in a story. What else can you say? The story was weird. It was this Japanese show, this anime show called Tokyo Ghoul. And it had a kind of slightly twisted concept in it, where the concept, it was these kind of, how would I say it? It's like these creatures that it's like long story short, they are creatures that have to consume humans to stay alive, and they come with strange abilities and kind of like out of this world, slightly demonic abilities, you know? And so what happens is, the main character in the story, he is this kind of normal kid whose psychology suddenly has to deal with him becoming a ghoul, this kind of like human consuming creature. And so he's in this point where he can't eat normal food, he gets sick, you know? And what happens is he's confronting he's going insane. It's as if his ghoulish animalistic kind of side is taking over, and he's getting possessed by his animal instincts. He's being literally thrown into animalistic rage, which is hard to watch, to be honest. So what happens is, this character somehow finds an abode, somehow finds a solution. His hardships, he finds this coffee shop where a bunch of them are ghouls too. And long story short, this kid starts working in this coffee shop, kind of, I don't know, eating sugar human cubes. But anyways, but anyway, what happens in the story is that this character, his name is Kaneki, and I told you guys this is a tangent, so just entertain the talk, you know. There's something crucial here in regards to the psychology of this character. This twisted kind of bad guy finds Kaneki. He comes there. to the coffee shop, and Kaneki is like this like kid who's just started to adjust in like normal ghoul life, and is like he's being this kind of very shy, like what do you call it, shy kind of corporate guy. And so what happens is this messed up person named Jason comes and kidnaps him. Literally comes in the coffee shop, starts like beating him, and of course this is an animation, you know. So be like listen to what I'm saying playfully. But what happens is he destroys this kind of character, like you know, breaks him down and then takes him. And it gets even more twisted where this messed up guy, he's like this next level evil strong ghoul, and he starts torturing this kid. But the thing about ghouls is they don't die, so it's like their creature form kind of regenerates as the story goes. So this character goes to the ultimate peak of suffering where he gets pushed into his inner psyche, and he's having a conversation, you know, pretty much with his shadow self in his psyche. And as he's having this conversation with this I forget the girl's name, I can't believe I forgot it. Anyways, what happens is he gets pulled into his inner psychology, and when he's in his inner psychology, his conscience is kind of battling. It's like, as they said in ancient times, the kind of devil on your shoulder and angel on your shoulder thing, right? So these two paradigms, like the messenger of the chaos and the messenger of the order, you know. In his conscience, in his subjective realm, he's being so crazy tortured. Literally, in external reality has become so chaotic, his consciousness is taking refuge in the inner realities. And as the consciousness is in the inner realities, suddenly he makes a choice. Something happens in life that takes this being to such a point where he makes a choice in accepting the nature of what it is, even though the story is twisted and he's like some ghoul. But I'm telling you, he accepts his nature. And when he accepts his nature, the animators were smart. They changed the hair color of this guy into pure white. And it's as if they literally, the writers of the show were like, this character will no longer experience fear. He has conquered, he has evolved beyond fear. And what he does is he literally wakes up from his inner psyche, and out instantly his intelligence and everything, it's as if when the fear went away, his intelligence opened up. And so he totally like defeats the bad guy and starts doing the same thing to him, and eventually eating the guy. But the whole notion is that he defeats his enemy in a very messed up way, but he defeats his enemy. What I'm saying is, as the theme of the story goes, this character now is like before he was resisting his nature, but now has stepped in the reality of his true nature. Now he begins walking and going towards a different journey, right? So you're constantly seeing the psychological development of the main character, and based on the episodes of these shows, I know how successful these guys. Like literally, the writers are next level, you know. Their conceptual engineers are like next level, you know. So the character goes through a transformation through the acceptance of what it is. In some sense, that inner war resolves to translate into an outer strength or a new outlook. Just hold on, guys. Let me look for something. For example, check this out. This Kaneki character, this is one of the things he says, like a quote he says. He says, "You're wrong. It's not the world that's messed up, it's those of us in it. Yes, some ghouls walk a path that leaves sorrow in their wake, but just like humans, we can choose a different path altogether. We have a lot to learn, both your kind and mine. We never need we need to stop fighting and start talking, because when it comes to the state of the world, you can't point your finger at ghouls or humans. We're all to blame." You see? It's like and that's when the psyche of this character has reached a point where it's trying to, the moment you accept the reality, other dimensions of it unlock, and then the journey and the conscious evolution, it goes based on that direction. Somehow deep down, because we're natural beings, we know nature. We might not know everything in accordance to it, but we know nature. And eventually, when you come to terms with your own nature, you find a sort of strange contentment where you kind of study manifestation. You don't have to bring a story of it all the time. You know, most of life, believe it or not, it's occupied by personal tasks, so it's going to attention to self. So the person must be learning from themselves more than they're learning from others. Let me tell you what I mean by that. That means the self, you must have creative endeavors. There must be efforts of, or sort of bursts of approach to novelty. When you see something new, immediately like pursue it. Pursue the mysteries of your own mind. Because your mind is, to be honest, an image at first for you. But the mind is too dynamic for words. It's as if life is beyond sensory data, and also the subjective echo of sensory data. The inner wars kind of stop in the same way that this Tibetan sage by the name of Sogyal Rinpoche, he says, unless you conquer anger, your enemies will be inexhaustible. That means literally the suffering cannot go if there is some sort of hatred or resistance against in life. It's as if you're being tense for no reason, karmically. So you see, it's as if how you defeat anger is like Buddha kind of said, anger is like burning coal. Like anybody who gets angry, not only it's like burning coal appears in their hand, and in some sense they throw the burning coal on others if their anger is directed outwards. Pretty much, it's like I find the test of civility is kind of seeing how aware the person is of the animal they are. Jordan Peterson called this like the dark side or something, and so did Yoda. The pilot of consciousness navigates as the whole plane of existence. Your attention is your true self. Your attention is the definer. If you understand this, you have understood freedom. Regardless of how the face of the world looks at us, regardless of the sight that is being intelligent, the drop in the ocean cannot worship anything only to discover it is itself. It is the mind. This is why activity, I find you must seek mastery, which means high quality. Literally, if you were in a marketplace, what I'm saying is, like, imagine you're in a marketplace of ideology. Literally every belief system or ideology has its own store in this bazaar of belief. You know, bizarre of belief, you know. And so what happens is, imagine you go to this marketplace and you see different prices, different costs, as if you believe this, you will miss out on all these things, and if you believe that, you will miss out on that, and miss that. So there comes a cost with the beliefs that you purchase. So as the person is in this marketplace, Mr. Within is saying, eventually people have to be social creatures, therefore they must entertain a sort of belief system. And so this belief system, what should filter it should be, what should justify it should be in regards to its efficiency, to the individual self and the collective self. That means it's totally fine to do just your mind seeing how you are an individual, but it's totally fine if your mind wants to see a sort of collective structure to your civilization. You know, there's always greater stories that must be pulled out from the chaos, you know, from the unknown. It's kind of like the advanced communicators of this world, those who have kind of realized that consciousness is an advanced communication of the universal sector. It's as if like you come to peace with energetic being. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. And the most crucial thing, I guess, to remember is to find a clear mirror, to become observant of how you're observing phenomena. I mean, you tell me what greater path to enlightenment there is. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Much blessings and all.